So this webinar marks the start of a series of events we're planning to host around the capabilities of Microsoft 365 Business Premium. So when we finish today, keep an eye out for the other events that we've got to follow. I'll just give a bit of an overview of Nviron before we kick off. For more than 30 years, we've been empowering SMB customers within with IT services to increase end user value and enhance productivity. Based in Cheshire, we specialise in delivering Microsoft solutions to our customers, and we work closely with Microsoft for a long time. Previously, we were a Microsoft Gold partner, but since the partnership status changed, we now hold Microsoft Solution Partner status for Modern Workplace and Azure Infrastructure. Today, in part one of our webinar series, we're going to be covering MFA and Conditional Access, and then Microsoft Defender for Business. We'll also have a couple of live demos from Ollie, one on MFA and Conditional Access, and one on Microsoft Defender. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. Feel free to use the Q&A section to ask questions throughout the webinar. We'll collate these, and we've got a dedicated Q&A session towards the end. So what we'll do is we'll answer all the questions together at that point. But if we can't answer the questions on the spot, we'll look to answer them after the webinar and then share those answers with everyone. So you've all got that. The webinar is also being recorded. So on completion of the webinar, we'll also make sure everyone's got a copy of the recording so you can refer back to it later. And now we've got through all that, let's meet our presenters for today. We've got Ben Staley, our Microsoft Services Specialist, and Oliver Drury, our Technical Cloud Specialist. And I'll pass over to Ben Staley, who will kick us off.
Thanks, Mike. And hello, everyone. The focus of today's session and the key points, key discussion points, will be what are the key challenges that small and medium businesses face in a hybrid work world. We'll also look at why you should trust Microsoft for security, and how Microsoft 365 helped to reduce your IT costs and obviously the overall complexities. And also, as Mike alluded to there, we'll have demonstrations, so you'll be able to see how Microsoft 365 enables secure productivity. Before we do, just some background really. Whether you've decided to make remote work options permanent across your business, or do you just want to have more options when it comes to connecting teams and customers, the right digital tools can be a competitive advantage. We see some continued challenges around remote work. For example, 43% of remote workers do not feel included in meetings, and it can be challenging to balance the needs of remote and in-person team members, and in many businesses, the future will increasingly see a mix of both. Leaders fear that productivity has been negatively impacted since shifting to remote work. While studies show this isn't necessarily the case, you need to increase visibility and connection to help get the most from your team. Additionally, more employees are using personal devices at work, which is great for engagement and productivity, but it's important to have a good solution for securing these devices and preventing data loss. Regardless of how large or small your business may be, security is top of mind for everybody. However, small and medium-sized businesses often face a situation in which they are vulnerable to the same threats as enterprise organizations, but do not have the same level of specialized security staff and tools to combat those threats. Microsoft has seen 300% increase in ransomware attacks in the past year, with more than half of those targeted at small businesses. Not surprisingly, leaders of those businesses see cyber threats becoming a growing area of business risk. With the average cost of these data breaches exceeding $100,000, it quickly makes sense to consider investing up front in higher levels of security. At the same time, in this world of hybrid work, you need solutions that are built to protect your business wherever people are working, not to mention being easy to use so it doesn't take up time from your core business activities. Together with the right tools at hand, we can help grow your business. The Microsoft 365 solution is designed to equip business owners to respond to these key challenges. securing your business with technology you can trust, but also helping reduce the overall costs moving forward. So, I mean, the question is why choose Microsoft 365 Business Premium? Or perhaps for some of you, why choose Business Premium over, say, a Business Standard or a Business Basic, which you may already be subscribing to? Microsoft 365 is available for small and medium-sized businesses via 3-tiered subscriptions within the Microsoft 365 Business Suite. And you can see visually there the different levels of capabilities that each subscription provides. Microsoft 365 Business Basic is the lower tier subscription, offering basic web access to Microsoft applications such as Exchange, Teams, OneDrive, and also SharePoint, as well as more traditional apps such as Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. The Microsoft 365 Business Standard is that mid-tier subscription, offering virtually the same Microsoft applications as the Business Basic, but delivering those capabilities as desktop client applications. Finally, the Microsoft 365 Business Premium is that top tier subscription and brings together 3 key Microsoft areas. There's the Microsoft 365 productivity apps, which we've just touched on within the standard license, but it also comes with security capabilities through Microsoft Mobility and Security, things such as Microsoft Entra, formerly known as the Azure Active Directory, which Ollie's going to touch on shortly. Defender for business, Intune, and on top of that, there's Windows 11 for business as well. All these capabilities are accessible as desktop client applications. Microsoft 365 Business Premium brings together the key capabilities you need to enable work from anywhere. Collaborating using Microsoft Teams, securing your identity, data, and devices, providing remote access and virtual desktops. As a customer, it eliminates the need for multiple point solutions and helps reduce your operational costs. How many of you are using Office 365 currently to provision an alternative endpoint protection solution like Bitdefender or Sophos? Microsoft 365 Business Premium brings together multi-layered security that is integrated with your productivity and collaboration tools, so you can run your business from anywhere with peace of mind. There's protection across identity, device, and application, protecting identity and access against lost or stolen passwords with multi-factor authentication, as well as controlling who can access your business data with conditional access, what we'll touch on shortly in our demonstration with Ollie. The protection continues to the devices that access your data, whether company or employee owned, using Intune policies. The ability to remotely wipe lost and stolen devices and protect your work data on personal employee-owned phones and tablets. The apps that are used to access work data can also be managed using Intune app protection policies to block work documents being saved in personal apps like a personal share. Additionally, advanced threat protection capabilities help defend against phishing and other cyber threats by checking links and attachments in real time within Teams, Outlook, and OneDrive. With data loss prevention and Azure information protection, you can automatically classify and protect sensitive information and restrict forwarding or copying of sensitive emails and documents. There are lots of technology benefits within Microsoft 365 Business Premium, and today we're going to deep dive into 2 key capabilities that exist within the subscription. My colleague Ollie is now going to provide a demonstration of multi-factor authentication and conditional access. And what we'll look to do after the short break in between, we'll then move on to the Microsoft Defender for Business demo. So at this point, I'll pass over to Ollie for the demonstration. Thanks.
Hi guys, I hope you're all doing well today. I'm just going to start off by sharing my screen. once I've shared it, hopefully you can confirm with me that everyone can see the admin center clearly, which is where we're going to be doing today's demo. Just a thumbs up or a hand or anything along those lines will do. There we go, John. Thanks for that. Great. So this is the first demo today. It's going to cover conditional access, MFA, and some other features within Azure that are related to conditional access. As you can see on the screen right now, we're within Azure, specifically Entra. Now, Entra is going to be the home for most of this demo today. It contains what was formerly Azure AD, which you guys may already be quite familiar with. Now, there's been a few minor changes going from Azure AD to Entra, and it's really is mainly a cosmetic rebranding. So any of those features you're familiar with in Azure AD are still here in Entra right now. So features and capabilities of Azure AD will continue to be available in Entra. So that's the prices, terms, service level agreements, they'll all be the same. And to make the transition seamless, Azure AD URLs, APIs, authentication libraries, they'll all be staying the same as well. And as are the developer experiences. So it's mainly just to allow for a differentiation from local AD, which has been used prior to now. And just before I continue, a quick reference back to what Ben was saying about licenses. Everything you're going to see here in the conditional access demo can be done with a business premium license. The second demo today, which is on Defender, is also part of business premium. So no concerns as to additional licensing requirements. And the underlying license that's part of business premium that enables this was formerly the AD-P1, Azure Active Directory P1 license, which is now Entra ID P1. So on my screen, you can see the Cloud Nviron demo tenant here. I'm going to go to Entra. I'm going to show you the overview here as well. So this is our cloud demo tenant. We run a variety of sort of hypothetical scenarios to provide demonstrations for customers. And if you guys require any further explanations or demos in the future, do reach out. We can go into further areas in more details. So an example customer today is going to be ourselves, Nviron. We're going to look at two different teams that I want to configure MFA and various features for. We're going to look at sales and commercial. We're going to establish some dynamic MFA for both of those teams. And at the same time, we're going to establish some permission sets surrounding them. So what I like to do is just go over to the groups section quickly. I've already pre-made two static groups, which you guys are probably familiar with creating if you've ever used Entra or Azure before. And we're going to create a dynamic group just to go with them. Now, these groups will function using an RBAC, role-based access control style design. So as you can see, one of the groups here is sales-business manager. So any of the roles, permissions, MFA we do today will be based on an RBAC style to allow us to manage permissions and MFA in a granular capacity throughout the business. So we've got the sales-business manager group. And if I go to commercial, we've got the commercial pre-sales engineer. And these are going to be the groups we're going to have as foundations that will allow us to set conditional access across the business, but dynamically target certain users and certain groups based on their technical requirements or their differences in access that they require. So I'm going to skip over the static part. We've got those two groups I've just showed you then. And what I'm going to do is create a dynamic group. I'm going to use this just a little bit later on. So you can see there's quite a few options here as to how to create your group. First question is security or 365. Now, security is what's used within Azure AD for managing permissions and any of the other attributes of that nature. We're going to miss off Microsoft 365, as that's predominantly for controlling access to SharePoint and other sort of collaborative items within 365. I'm going to call this group Dynamic, inventive naming scheme. I'm going to skip the description, and we're going to go down to this option here. And because what we're doing today is controlling user information and data, I'm going to go for the dynamic user option. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to enter a query into this section here. Now, really useful dynamic group to have within your tenant is one which can automatically detect when an account has been disabled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the properties section. I'm going to select account enabled. I'm going to go to the operator, I'm going to set equals, and then I'm going to set the value to false. So that's done. I'm going to set save there, and I can click create. And what I have now in the background is a dynamic group that sweeps up any users within the tenant who've had their accounts disabled. It could be a really useful feature if you're wanting to stay on top of licensing, for example. You've got a user process, user gets removed from the business, and automatically Azure can detect in the background and unlicense that application or that user. So what I'm going to do now, we've got the foundation set with a dynamic group and some static groups, is going to talk about conditional access a bit more. So conditional access is a form of dynamic MFA that restricts access to resources, authentication, or any other aspects of your Azure environment that you would like to control access to. It's been around for a couple of years now. It's an incredibly popular feature amongst most people who use Azure and Microsoft tools. And what we'll do is we're going to create a couple of example scenarios. Now, example scenarios, in this case, commonly used ones are things like restricting based on geolocation or based on work hours. So that could be controlling access to a certain app based on whether users are in the office or a certain country, or perhaps restricting it so that they can't use a certain app outside of maybe 9 to 5 or whatever other business hours you guys have decided to set. So I'm just going to go up to the top. I'm going to go to conditional access, and you can see the home page here. Now, there's a few options we're presented with. What we're going to do initially is we're going to go to create new policy. And I'm met with a few options here to target certain groups. So initially, we're going to go and do the engineer. So I'm going to go to users here. I'm going to select users and groups, and I'm going to click here. And we're presented with any of the users and groups that we have. So I'm going to search, and I'm going to use that RBAC group I created before, the commercial DAS pre-sales engineer. I'm going to select that. And now we know that this policy is going to be targeting the commercial engineers group. And in fact, what I want to achieve with this policy is I want to restrict access to a certain admin center application to users so that they can only use it when they're in the office. This instance might be because with the rise of people working from home, certain applications you might want people to access when they're in a secure environment. If someone working from home has access to an admin center, perhaps there's a chance that someone in the home environment who is not the intended user may have access to the laptop and could cause damage to your estate security-wise. So I've selected pre-sales engineer. I'm going to go to target resources. Now there's a multitude of different areas you can select here. But what we're going to do first is go to cloud apps. I'm going to go to select apps, and I'm going to select down here. And what I'm going to do once it loads up is I'm going to select the admin center, Microsoft admin portals, and click select. Now that application is targeted and we have users who are specifically referred to within the policy, I'm going to set a certain condition. I'm going to go to conditions here. I'm going to go to locations, and I'm then going to go to configure, and I'm going to go to a selected location, and I'm going to pick the Nviron HQ, which at the moment is identified via the IPs that the device logs in with. So I'm going to click select, and then I'm going to go down to the bottom, and I'm met with a multitude of other options here with regards to MFA. It could be requiring strong authentication. It could require a certain device to be compliant or a certain OS. In this case, as is best practice, I'm going to require multi-factor authentication on this app as well. I'm going to click select. I'm going to give this an example. I'm going to call it test 1. Let me just correct that. And I'm going to click create on that policy. Now, that policy will run in the background. Conditional access policies can take at least a few minutes to come into play. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to swap to this tab here. I'm just going to show you this page. This is the page that users will be met with if they fail to meet a conditional access policy's requirements. There are some amendments you can make so that the message can be more informative and so that certain users can be informed of why it is that they cannot access a certain resource. As you know, A tricky component to conditional access sometimes can be actually deploying it on the estate and ensuring that it doesn't restrict access to lots of users who otherwise, are not performing malicious activities and need to access certain resources within Azure. So I'm just going to go over and I'm going to make another one now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to target the sales group this time. I'm going to go on create new policy. I'm going to call this one test 2, keeping with the inventive naming scheme. I'm going to go to users. I'm going to go to select users and groups. I'm going to go to users and groups again. This time, I'm going to target the business managers within our sales team. Now, these being non-technical users have a different requirement. I'm not going to restrict access to any admin portals or anything of that nature because they don't already have access to those items. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say that if they want to register a new device, say, for example, you might have a BYOD policy in your tenant, and as a result, you might have to have slightly stronger security conditions for joining new devices. What I'm going to do is require MFA for registering a new device, so getting yourself set up on a new device. So I'm going to go to Target Resources. I'm going to go to Cloud Apps. I'm going to go to User Actions, and then I'm going to go on Register or Join Devices. So if you're following with me so far, this is targeting the sales business managers and in a context in which anyone within that group is trying to join a new device to Azure AD. I'm going to go down to conditions. I'm going to skip over this section as it restricts you and doesn't allow a condition on this one. I'm going to go down to grant, and I'm going to require multi-factor authentication. And then I'm going to click select on that point there. And what I can do then is click create. And what we do have now is a policy that means that if a user within that group is wanting to join a new device to the estate, they will be met with an MFA requirement. Now, it should be noted that you can actually customize the type of MFA. You might say, I want you to access using Microsoft's secure authentication app, or perhaps just a text code might be enough in this instance. So just moving a little bit further on, what I'm going to do is show a global policy. These have been policies that target specific users and groups. However, what is quite common for businesses to set a global conditional access policy, it might be multiple different types, and then allow smaller exemptions for certain groups. That way you have a blanket layer of security and you only make exemptions for a few users. So in this case, I'm going to go to create new policy. I'm going to call this test 3. I'm going to go to users and we're going to select all users here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go a little bit further down and we're going to go to conditions. We're going to go to locations, going to go to configure, and then we're going to go to selected locations here. So what you can actually see at this point is a few pre-configured locations that have already been registered within Azure. They might be a specific country, they might be the office, your head office, for example. And just for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to duplicate this tab, and then I'm going to go to locations, custom locations. I'm going to go back and we'll fill that data in a second. Bear with me 1 second. Oh, wrong section. Go through to conditional access. Named locations. There we go. Microsoft Entra named locations. So you can see 2 items have been added here so far. So the global policy that I'm going to demonstrate for you now is going to be one that selects and it blocks access from a specific country. Perhaps your SecOps team have had several reports recently that you're getting a lot of failed malicious logon attempts from a specific country. In this instance, we'll pick France as an example. So what we can do is we can go to countries location. You can search based on countries. Of course, it is possible to set locations based on network ranges and IPs as well. In this instance, I'm just going to go for a country. Going to put France in as the name, capitalize that. I'm going to search through in the countries section like this, and we're going to select France, just like that. And just like that, you've got a named location which can be targeted as part of conditional access. So I'm just going to nip back to conditional access quickly. I'm going to create a new policy. I'm going to go test 3. I'm going to say this applies to all users, like so. I'm going to go down to conditions. I'm going to go to locations, configure, select location, make France, like so, and select that. Now down at the bottom, what we can do is we can go through and we can say block access, like so on, and we'll click select there. And what this policy will do now is it'll say, if a user attempts to access from France, block without any other access required or allowed. You will get alerts on any of your conditional access stuff, so it is possible to track who's being blocked from what location. I'll hesitate to create on this one now, just in case it affects any other alternate resources. But as you guys can imagine, a user who tries to sign up from France will be met with the same conditional access failure policy block page, which you can see here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move on from that point. I'm just going to quickly show you before this demonstration is over that you can look at some pre-made policies. So you might come to the situation and think, well, it's going to take time to generate some of these policies, to create custom ones. And obviously, a custom policy for your business is the best idea. But if you go to create a new policy from a template here, you can actually see that there's a multitude of pre-made policies that save you a lot of time. So provided you've got a business premium license, you can actually set up conditional access and do the configuration aspects in a couple of minutes, realistically speaking. It's the deployment that you would obviously want to be cautious with. So in this instance, we could go for the require multi-factor authentication from all users. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to go to review and create. And you can see all of the settings here in a similar capacity. They're laid out so you can see what's available. I can put a title to it, and I can use this pre-made policy, which would save me a fair amount of time and allow me to enable something useful like global MFA requirements for the whole tenant. So there are a couple of other features that I think would be useful just to very quickly cover before the demonstration is over. I'm just going to step back 1 second, back to the home screen. Like so. So there are, as I said, a few other features I think that'd be useful to cover. Trusted named locations are useful. So going back to named locations, just pointed these out beforehand. Obviously, you can do something like block access to France, block access to Germany, but a really useful point, and we used it just before in one of the demonstrations, is setting your own home office or your central office as a trusted location. It might be a matter of requiring MFA to prompt less frequently. So perhaps you currently have a policy that says MFA check-in needs to be once a week or perhaps once a day. You can have a policy in which if a user is in one of these locations, the IPs are detected and maybe MFA prompts slightly less frequently, or it gives them access to certain critical apps that might be required within the business. Really useful for reducing user admin and various other points on the side. There's also a section on authentication methods, which is quite useful too. Okay, bear with me a second. There we go. So just in this section here, briefly want to show you some of the authentication methods that might be available on your tenant. Now, obviously, in an ideal world, it would be perfect to have everyone using the Microsoft Authenticator app, although this is on a business use case scenario. Some businesses might not provide mobile phones for their users, so therefore, there's obviously the question of people using a personal mobile for the app. But you can enable and disable various authentication protocols here. So perhaps you work in an environment which requires a higher level of security than the usual business. You can disable SMS-based authentication or maybe email-based authentication, which are known as slightly weaker forms of MFA, and you could enable Microsoft Authenticator and keep that there. Now, a useful point surrounding this, if you're wanting to see within your business, is to go to the monitoring tab on the left and then select activity. Now here, you can see a feedback of the various different types of MFA that are being used within the business. Now, after I extolled the virtues of Microsoft Authenticator, you can see it's still not top of the list here that's being used within the demo tenant. And that is something that you'd want most businesses to work towards, is to use Authenticator.
Thanks, everyone. We're going to continue with the webinar now. As we've learned so far, Microsoft 365 Business Premium brings together multi-layered security that is integrated with your productivity and collaboration tools, so you can run your business from anywhere with peace of mind. In our next demonstration, Ollie is going to demonstrate Microsoft Defender for Business, Microsoft Endpoint Security Solution for small and medium-sized businesses, which is included within the Microsoft 365 Business Premium license. Over to you, Ollie.
Hi guys, I'm just going to start by sharing my screen. Second. So I'll just get a hands up or a thumbs up or something to indicate everyone can see the Defender for Endpoint Admin Center. That's brilliant. Thank you, John. Yeah, so we're going to have a quick overview of Defender for Endpoint, the Admin Center, some of the features surrounding how to hunt for alerts, how to investigate once you've found particular devices that have been affected, and any other functionality that might be of use in the next 25 minutes or so. So Defender for Endpoint is built directly into Windows 10. It's not bolted on, so the SecOps team have got nothing to deploy. It only requires running a small onboarding script on each of the endpoint machines to connect them to the service. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the left-hand navigation. I'm going to go down a little bit. And what I'm going to do is go to the settings icon down the bottom left. So there's no install or run that's required on the machines when you do the setup. We're going to go to endpoints. I'm going to go a little bit further down into the section. And then we're going to go to device management down near the mid bottom. Okay, so what you can see first here is a few options with regards to onboarding, some of the system config that you can set in place initially. We're going to select operating system, and we're going to look at the onboarding process. So you can see there's a multitude of different operating systems it works with. We've got Windows, Mac OS, Linux, iOS, Android. So basically any of the major supported operating systems. I'm going to close off that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the deployment methods. As you can see here, there's a few other options as well. It can be done via group policy. It can be done via MDM, endpoint manager, any other useful feature like that. So it's pretty dynamic as to how you can actually deploy Defender for Endpoint onto your devices. I'm going to close out that list. I'm going to go back to the scroll bar, and we're going to go back to Home on the side. So Microsoft 365 Defender, the dashboard offers an operational view of the organization's endpoints and users, giving SecOps users an aggregated view of the latest alerts, their severity, and when they were reserved. So we're going to go down a little bit. I'm going to show you a few of the other alerts that are available in this demo tenant. So the dashboard also provides a listing of the machines most at risk with several alerts related to each machine and indicates users at risk, providing insight into the activities, actions, and relationships to the machine. Security Operations Dashboard in M365 provides a single pane of glass and centralized management. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to left-hand navigation, and we're going to go to Incidents and Alerts. I'm going to expand this menu slightly, going into incidents specifically. So alerts are any security-related incidents that are collected from the organization's endpoints and flagged by MDE service. It applies correlation analytics and aggregates all related alerts and investigations into one incident entity. And by doing so, MDE narrates a broader attack story, allowing the SecOps user to understand and deal with complex threats across the organization with the right visuals to go with it. SecOps user can also see the latest alerts from all machines that are onboarded in the entire organization and along with the severity of each of those corresponding alerts. And now severity in this context is the potential impact that the associated malware may have on the organization as a whole, not just as a single endpoint or a single user. So we're going to go into the MD demo incident 010215. So this is one of the demos we're going to go through now. Going to load this in. So dropping into the incidents queue and then selecting the incident, the user can see an alert where a PowerShell dropped a suspicious file on the end user's machine. We can see this just at the start here. So it's marked as a medium severity alert. However, the SecOps team wants to understand the context and see what actions they might need to take. Microsoft 365 Security allows a SecOps user to set alert statuses, set classification types, or create a rule to suppress the alert next time it occurs in a specific machine or anywhere in the organization. So we're just going to go one down from the incidents tab on the left and go into alerts now. So the alert story takes alert triage and investigation to the next level, displaying the alert and related evidence together with other events that occurred within the same execution context and time. So a rich triage of context, the alert and surrounding events is available on the alerts page. So essentially you get a walkthrough of all of the various components that have amalgamated to cause this issue. So we're going to home in now on the PowerShell dropped a suspicious file on the machine item. And here you can see some further context. So at the top of the alert, user can now see how this incident has affected the entire organization and what users and machines were involved in this alert. So we can see the machines and users at the top there. It gives you context as to who is involved in this issue. So tracing down the malware related to this alert, SecOps can now see that PowerShell was used to schedule an unusual task to run an unknown executable on the PC. Obviously, this is unusual and malicious activity, so it's something that we would seek to investigate. So I'm going to click on PowerShell dropped a suspicious file on the machine, and it's going to give me a little bit further info if I just move down here on the right-hand side. Under the alert story, I'm going to move a little bit further down as well. So looking into the alert story, SecOps user can see what the file was dropped. It's called winatp intro backdoor.exe. An obvious name, as you guys might think, but obviously it's a malicious file. So it sounds suspicious, but SecOps user doesn't yet know if it's truly a malicious file or not. Now the team can easily find more information by visiting the detailed file investigation page. So in the alert story here in the center, what we're going to do is go to the file creation section. And we're going to click in again and go to the details pane. And we're going to open up the file. So SecOps user can investigate the details of a file associated with a specific alert, behavior, or event to help determine if the file exhibits malicious activities, identified the attack motivation, and understand the potential scope of the breach. So to enrich the data related to the file, SecOps can also submit the file for deep analysis, which is quite useful. It allows further investigation of the file itself to determine whether it's something which is, say, a Trojan, for example, or another type of malicious software. So we're going to go into the deep analysis tab, which you can see just in the middle of the options. So deep analysis feature executes a file in a secure, fully instrumented cloud environment. Deep analysis results show the file's activities, its observed behaviors, and associated artifacts. So that could be drop files, registry modifications, and communications with various IPs. So here, SecOps can see that the suspect file is a system file, talk, and it's talked with an external IP address. So what we'll do is we will go to the behaviors point, expand that slightly, and then we're going to go into the system file communicates with an external IP address item. I'll expand that a little bit further so we can see some of the details of what's happening. Okay, so now that I've identified what it is, I'm going to go back over to endpoints on the left-hand side, and we're going to hunt it down and have a look at it further. So attackers need not inject a physical file into a victim's device to take control. Attacks can happen through scripts and a multitude of other means you guys might be aware of, having dealt with various security incidents in the past. So under the device name, we're going to go to Andrew FPC, hone in on that one a little bit further. And this is the device that was just affected prior. So an attacker may trick a user into executing such a script, or the script may be executed remotely from another device in the organization that was previously infected, with the attacker attempting to move laterally within the network. So now that they've got initial access, they're wanting to move sideways through various users to try and gather as much information as possible, or perhaps elevate their position that they've managed to gain within the organization. So we're going to go to the Overview tab, which we're already here at the start. And we're going to move over to Alerts. And then what we'll do now is we're going to hone in on the Suspicious Process Injection Observed, which is about fourth down. There we go. So detection of subscripts is difficult because administrators also run scripts remotely to carry out various administrative processes and activities. And if you go over and you see the alert details and alert story, we can see the sequence of events that has occurred here for this script to be initiated and trigger an alert. So just on the furthest right, we're going to scroll down a little bit just so we can see a bit more of the story. So during the automated investigation, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint has identified the notepad.exe process, which it was injected into, as one of the artifacts that requires remediation on the system. And we're going to go a little further onto the Suspicious Process Injection Observed pane, which we can see on the right. I'm going to go under the Investigation ID and just hone in a little further. So by default, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint will wait for the SecOps approval before proceeding, but they could also configure it under the machine group settings to skip this step and apply remediation instantly. So obviously that reduces any of the strain on you guys, from an administrative perspective, and it also allows you to act on items sooner before maybe a human can interact. So we're going to go back over just to endpoints on the left-hand side again under device inventory. So in this area here, the SecOps user is going to take a closer look at the machine with the alert that we just saw a second ago. Now, the machine view page provides SecOps with an overview of security relevant details, such as logged in users, high-level machine status, and risk profile. They can also see the Microsoft Defender Security Center supports multiple endpoint types, includes Windows Server 2019, Linux, Apple, clients running macOS, any of those items. So we're going to go and hone in on Lola's PC, which is second down on the list. Just get a bit more information on that. So zooming in here, we can see there's a summary of all the relevant alerts that were related to this device. And what we can do is go over to the overview, and we're going to move right to the alerts tab just to get a bit more information, much like we did with the previous alert. So additionally, you can review a rich and detailed timeline that shows all the events that were observed from this device back as far as 6 months. So there's a fair amount of legacy data that can be stored in that regard. And we're going to go over to timeline. And this gives us some context as to when items have occurred so far. So you can interactively hunt, search, and explore historical data across all of the endpoints. So what we're going to do now is I want to hone in specifically between the 19th and the 18th in the time range. So I'm going to go down to custom range. I'm going to set that through. So what we can also do as well, just to narrow things down slightly, is set a filter, which you can see at the top right, just above the list. Go into the filter section. And under event group, we're going to go to file events. Let's select that, make sure that we're filtering by that item. I'm going to apply that filter. And as you can see, the items have been sorted, so down to a lower level. And I'm going to close the filters pane so it doesn't get in our way whilst we look at this. So SecOps can reduce the verbosity of the results by using search or filter functionality at any point. It's pretty much essential, really, when you're trawling through a vast quantity of alerts that could be looked at in an event like this. So under the timeline, we're going to search, and we're going to search in for a .doc file. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down slightly as well to get a bit more information, see some of the other items here. And we're going to go to Outlook EXE, downloaded an email attachment. That's the item that we'll investigate further at this point. Okay, so we click far right into the scroll bar and it brings up some other items here. So as you can see, here's all the associated items with the outlook.exe file. We can see date, time, we can see the folder through which it was executed. We can see encryption types. It gives you an enormous amount of information on the item which has affected the user. So I'm just going to go a little bit further down, bring it back up again. There we go. Okay, so drilling in a detailed view of the alerts, it shows the SecOps team what services were involved in the alert essentially, as well as the affected files. We're going to go a little bit further into the RS4 WinATP intro invoice draft.docm file, which is just down at the bottom. And what I'm going to do now is the open file page. And this allows us, much like before, to investigate a file in a secure environment that does not affect the endpoint on which you're currently having a look from. So you can see all the malware in question was introduced via an email. The deep integration with Microsoft Defender and Office 365 lets your SecOps team view more details on who else in the organization received this mail, including delivery actions that could be delivered to junk or blocked, as well as the delivery location. So you can see inbox, junk, quarantine, where exactly you would find this item on the user's machine. So what I'm going to do now is go into the 4 email inboxes and go to open in Office 365. And what it'll do is it'll swap us over slightly to the Security and Compliance Center, and it allows us to investigate a little bit further. And if I scroll down a touch, we can see the 4 items that have come through here. So SecOps users can return to Microsoft 365 for Defender portal, and they can view any of the organization's threat analytics that way. I'm going to go to a slightly different site now. Just swap back to Defender. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go over to threat analytics. I'm going to have a look at a slightly newer section now as well, in which you can have any of the data coming into your organization. It can be analyzed and we can see potential high severity alerts or any anticipated events that could occur. So cyber threats are emerging more frequently and prevalently. It's critical for organizations to quickly assess their security posture, covering the impact of emerging threats and their organizational resilience. I'm going to go a little bit further down just so we can see some more of the alerts. So threat analytics is a set of reports published by Microsoft security researchers as soon as they identify emerging threats and outbreaks. The reports help the SecOps team assess the impact of threats to the environment and identify actions that can contain them. So a few of the features you guys would find within here are latest threats, high impact threats, and threat summary, which I think threat summary is particularly useful. It shows the number of threats among the threats reported in threat analytics with the actual alerts and what's associated to them. Okay, so what we're going to do is just under threat, we're going to go further into the Adwind rat lands using DDE, expand a little further into that section. Okay, so each threat report generally provides an overview of the threat and an analysis of the techniques and tools that the threat uses. It also provides worldwide impact, information, mitigation recommendations, and detection information. The report includes several cards that show dynamic data about how the organization is impacted by the threat and how prepared it is to stop the threat. So just to briefly go over the available options, you've got alerts over time and impacted assets are the 2 areas here. So alerts over time shows the number of distinct devices with active and resolved alerts. The number of resolved alerts indicates how quickly the organization responds to alerts associated with a threat. Ideally, the chart should show alerts resolved within a few days. These are not items that you'd want to have waiting on your to-do list. Now, impacted assets is pretty much within the name. It shows the current number of distinct devices in the organization that are impacted by the threat. A device is categorized as active if there is at least one alert associated with a threat, and resolved if all the alerts associated with a threat on the device have been resolved, looked at by a security team, or otherwise mitigated in some way. So each of these reports also includes cards that can provide an overview of how resilient the organization can be against a given threat. So this could be secure configuration status, vulnerability patching status, mitigation recommendations. And speaking of mitigation, what I'll do now is we'll just go over to the mitigations tab to expand a little further. And just going to see what data we can pull up here. So the threat and vulnerability managed component of Microsoft Defender provides real-time endpoint vulnerabilities and misconfigurations. It's an assessment for both OS and third-party software. It's prioritized by and correlated external threat landscapes, insights, internal threat insights, and business context. So it's probably going rather verbose way of saying that essentially looks at the outside world and within your business and identifies what mitigations would be most appropriate to remedy any of these security concerns. So we're just going to go over to endpoint again on the left-hand side, and we're going to go to vulnerability management. So TVM also includes the ability to create remediation and mitigation requests and monitor their progress in real time, bridging the gap between security admins and IT. Okay, so the dashboard you can see in front of you, you're met with a whole host of information initially. So there's several key overviews and areas that are useful. That'll be the organizational exposure score, which reflects the current exposure associated with the devices in the organization. Now, reduce the exposure score by addressing what needs to be remediated based on the prioritized security recommendations. So it really is simple as Defender for Endpoint identifies items which require most immediate remediation based on their severity, and you should go about those by remediating them and improving your score. It's a good holistic way to be able to see an overview of how the tenant is doing in general and act on some of those critical items. There are a few other points here which are of use as well. So that's Microsoft Secure Score for devices, identifies it on a device base. You get a device exposure distribution, so that reflects the exposure level distributed of devices in the organization. And of course, last but not least, top security recommendations, which you can see just on the right-hand side there. This is updated quite frequently, as we said before, with some of Microsoft's experts uploading various items. And obviously, it is unique to your tenant too. So it gives you various remediations and steps that you can do, which will have a knock-on impact on your exposure score and generally tie things together in the organization and seal off vulnerabilities on your endpoints. Okay, so I'm just going to go a little bit further down. And there are a couple of little points here that aren't to be missed, and that is top events, top vulnerable software, and top remediation activities. I think top vulnerable software is a particularly useful one here. As we can see, WinRAR is one of the items here, and it's identified as a weakness. Really useful. Certain organizations will obviously have quite drastically different software that they use on their machines. So it's important to keep on top of things, understand which software is exposing your business and which items are low vulnerability and not causing you any concerns. So I'm just going to move a little bit over to our recommendations section, just on the left. So dive into the security recommendations. SecOps users can see that MDA provides a list of actionable recommendations to improve the vulnerability posture of the organization, both in relation to software vulnerabilities as well as endpoint misconfigurations. This page contains a dynamically prioritized list of security recommendations for the entire organization across all operating systems and software. Now, these recommendations are prioritized based on the potential exposure improvements impact that applying them would generate. So it helps security admins focus on the vulnerabilities that currently pose the highest threat and allows you to understand essentially which items aren't worth tackling immediately, which items need to be handled straight away to improve your threat level. So under security recommendations, I'm going to go to the update RARlab WinRAR to version 6.0.0.0, the first item in the list. We'll have a quick look at this. Okay, so by clicking into recommendations, your SecOps team can view further details about the recommendations. This could be exposed machines, related CVEs, any other items. And this is the last section here that we're going to cover. So I'm going to go to the security recommendations. I'm going to expand it a little further. So this capability also includes integration with MD Threat Analytics, where threats covered in TA are linked to vulnerabilities discovered by TVM. So clicking on a threat link will open the related threat analytics report. Just going to expand that a little further. You can see the exposed devices there as well. And down on the very bottom, where we can see CVEs addressed, I'm going to look a little bit further into this point and just move down to it. So at the top, we can see the update RARlab WinRAR to version 6.0.0 pane. This is essentially the CVE that we want to address in this case. I'm going to go to the remediation options, which you can see just below the title there. Expand it a little further. So to complement the scenario, which was described in the earlier section, what we're going to do is we're going to go through to the remediations and apply the mitigation. So if you give me 1 second. So there's security admins can really take two types of mitigating actions really when you look at this situation. And one is to create a remediation request. So this is the primary mitigation option for a security recommendation. I'm going to go through into vulnerability management just to show you that, just on the side. And then we're going to go to remediation, just like this. So we can see the remediations. Obviously, they feed through here from some of the previous devices we've seen and items we've seen there. So we're going to go to the update WinRAR to 5.71.00, which is the second down in the list. I'll expand that. Okay. And we're going to go to the exemptions tab. Okay, so here's the other option. If immediate remediation is not possible on your tenant, you can create an exemption. So in some cases, it's not feasible for you to apply the primary remediation. Your security admins can choose to create an exception instead. So under exceptions, we're going to click on Update Python, which is the only item in the list here. It's going to expand that for us. And what I'm going to do is go to the software inventory. So as you see here, anything you want to update, you can just do straight from the panel. So go down slightly to software inventory, which is just below remediation. And so the software inventory area of threat vulnerability management provides visibility into all of the first and third-party software installed across all devices in the organization. You can see all of the columns here with any of the information surrounding, be it RAR, WinRAR, Microsoft, any other provider. So in the WinRAR row, which is at the top, we're going to go to threats. We're going to expand so we can see what's in here. So SecOps users can drill down into any of the software products listed in the software inventory for a detailed overview of this software and its related TVM information, security recommendations, exposed machines, related vulnerabilities, version distribution, missing security updates, you name it. It can list them through here. So this page provides all available information related to the vulnerabilities any software is introducing into the organization. Their exposure impact, related security recommendations, any other information that could be useful surrounding using that software in your organization. So if we just expand it further in the security recommendations section, this is a list of all the security recommendations related to this software across all the machines in the organization. I'm going to go to discovered vulnerabilities, and we can see some further information with relation to this software. This is a list of all the vulnerabilities and CVEs that exist for this software across all the devices in the organization. Installed devices, says it in the name. This is a list of all the machines that have the software installed on them. Version distribution, we can see the various versions that were used for this software. So this is a distribution list of all versions across all machines in the organization. I'm going to go over to the missing KBs tab, just over on the right slightly. This is a list of all the missed security updates for this software. This is obviously an essential part here. If a machine is missing KBs, then obviously they're opening themselves up to known threats and vulnerabilities that Defender for Endpoint would otherwise patch. So we're going to go back over just slightly up to the dashboard in the left-hand pane. So the device page in MDE is enriched with threat and vulnerability management data, provides a full vulnerability context for the machine entity, security recommendations, software vulnerabilities, software inventory, missing security updates, and the overall exposure level. Which is going to go down slightly as well, just to show you the bottom. And then in the top exposed devices box, we can see DC1. There's two of them actually, and just above Janet LPC. So this enrichment serves your SecOps team, as well as the end user, who can now easily see any gaps in a device's defenses while investigating an alert and gain insights into possible weaknesses that the attacker might have exploited. So we're going to go to the security recommendations tab, which you guys are probably somewhat familiar with now, just slightly over to the right. So SecOps users, they can review any of the security recommendations in this list. This is a list of all the TVM security recommendations that are related to the device. Selecting a recommendation provides more information, including the number of vulnerabilities affecting the device, as well as the common vulnerabilities and exposures that are addressed by following the recommendations. So we're just going to go into the security recommendations. We're going to click on the Update Microsoft.NET Framework, which is the first one in the list. This is going to be the last point for demo here. I'm just going to have a quick look through. So we can see any of the vulnerability details here. There's 10 vulnerabilities, and there is an exploit available to exploit these items. So what we're going to do now is just move over slightly and open up the CVEs. So these are any of the items here which on the machine need to be addressed and brought up to speed. Let's bring it forward slightly. So yeah, here we're basically at the end of the demonstration. DC1 is an affected machine. These are the CVEs that are addressed throughout this demonstration. And this is essentially the best area to go in, find any of your most affected devices, those which are potentially causing you the greatest vulnerabilities, see which points need to be addressed and how to remediate them within the organization. Now, I understand it's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the admin center here. There's plenty of other features, and if we had several hours, I would go on and we'd be able to explore some of those items. So if you have any questions at the end, guys, please do bring them up. But if there are any other areas which you'd like to explore a bit further, the idea of this demonstration being just to give you a bit of a taster, don't hesitate to reach out to us and we can get something set up one-to-one so that we can explore those items in more detail. Anyway, I'll pass back to you guys now.
Thank you very much, Ollie. I'll just get this set up and then we can, Ben can continue.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Ollie, for a very insightful demonstration. I'm sure you'll agree into the MFA and Conditional Access and also Defender for Business. Just to give you some background, I guess, and context regarding the service that this encompasses. Nviron are a Microsoft Direct Build Tier 1 partner, so we aren't an indirect reseller, and we don't work with a distributor, for example, an indirect provider. So we provision all our customer Microsoft 365 subscriptions directly with Microsoft, and as a Microsoft Direct Build Tier 1 partner, we then we receive excellent discounts from Microsoft, and it's our sort of we basically pass on onto our customers those discounts to ensure we can provide those competitive rates and best value. Typically, we're approximately 14% cheaper when comparing to a commercial business provisioning Microsoft 365 subscriptions themselves via the Microsoft website, where you'll be paying sort of RIP. In terms of our skill set, we are a certified Microsoft Workplace Solution Partner, and we do have the maximum assessment points. So Mike mentioned earlier on that this replaced the Microsoft Gold Partner status, which some of you may be familiar with. To achieve the solution partner statuses, Microsoft measure partners against the number of customers they manage on a month-by-month basis, and their technical staff have to successfully complete the required Microsoft certifications. And I think the final one is also, it measures the number of Microsoft 365 workloads which have been successfully deployed by Nviron for their customers. So yeah, to achieve that certification, we do need to be certified, and we're kind of monitored on that on a regular basis. To be an actual Microsoft Direct Build Tier 1 partner, Nviron must provide customers with access to a self-serve license provisioning platform, and also subscribe to a Microsoft support plan to support our customers. The self-service portal enables customers to manage their own subscriptions, but also purchase new ones. We don't require delegated admin privileges to provision these licenses to customers. In fact, we don't require any admin access to your tenant, and that lots of our customers do like that in terms of sort of GDAP and the reassurances that it brings in terms of security. In terms of support tickets, if customers do require escalation to Microsoft for queries and tickets, we can manage this on your behalf and we can escalate those for you. Within the team, we offer access to an experienced Microsoft licensing specialists. We've got our own technical cloud consultants internally, Ollie being one of our team members, and we all work collaboratively in order to deliver an effective and efficient service to our customers. So it is a fully rounded internal service that that Nviron offer within our CSP program. So yeah, I think
Thank you to Ollie and Ben for your time on the webinar today. We've got some questions in the chat, so we're going to go through those now. I'm going to open them out to Ollie and Ben, and we'll start with the first one from Victor Green. He says, Ari, the France example, would the rule stand up if a VPN was used to connect from a different country's IP address? Is that one?
Yes. Yeah. So if someone is using a VPN in this instance, then yes, it would affect conditional access. It's not capable of detecting if someone is using a spoofed VPN ID. Then yes, in that case, it would believe they were in the country of origin. So in that instance, what you would probably want to do is set a global rule, and you would base it on network IP. So just before, for the sake of demonstration, it's quite easy to set something like grant access if location is UK. Great, that'll stop a fair few attacks. But as is a very valid question, people use VPNs and they will often set a VPN to a specific location. The first port of call, as I said, is make a global rule which sets it to just your country. That'll cut a few people off who aren't using VPNs. And more importantly, is to identify your location based on your own IPs internally, and then any other network factors which might uniquely identify your HQ. That's probably the best way to do it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Ollie. Then a second question, just on licensing. Do we need just the one premium license to access all these features? And then can the rest of the user base be left on a standard license?
I'll take that one. So if we're referring to conditional access, it's all or nothing. So the standard license wouldn't give you the Microsoft Entra capabilities. So you'd have to be, it's all or nothing. So you would have to have the premium license. With Defender for Business, that can be purchased as a standalone subscription with a base license, an eligible base license. But again, that does come with a business premium license, so it does provide real value as a subscription. Would you agree with that, Ollie?
I would, yes. Yeah, it's probably perfectly put, Ben.
Okay, great.
Thank you. And then with conditional access and other policy-based rule sets, does it matter if the environment is hybrid as to where the user accounts were created, on-prem versus online? That one's one for you, Ollie.
Yeah, so in this case, we could have two situations. If you're in a cloud-only environment, great, not too complicated. It targets your cloud accounts. If you're in a hybrid environment and your process is creating the users in your local environment, obviously using AD Sync, they can replicate up to Azure, and there shouldn't be any concern as to where they're created. If they're created in Azure and you have write back, they can go back to your local accounts. It's fine because they're already in Azure, and this conditional access only controls data within Azure. So essentially, if you make them in Azure, fine, they're already there. If you make them in your local environment, they will be synced via Azure AD Connect into Azure, replicated there, and thus, affected in Azure. So essentially, local environments will copy to Azure, and your rules will impact it there. If you make them in Azure initially, not a problem. Obviously, that's where conditional access works. So the long and short of that is, for hybrid environments, administratively, there's not much difference. You just need to make sure that you're setting any of your policies to target actual items within Azure and 365, as obviously it doesn't work for local items.
Thanks, Ollie. Next, we've got almost a double question. So Mike has asked if Defender can be used Microsoft Defender can be used alongside Bitdefender, and Victor Green has added to that, asking if it can be used in conjunction with any other traditional AV software. Ollie, can you jump in on that?
Yeah, so a little bit of a tricky question. My initial desire is to say, don't tempt it. I'm sure that many users here have experienced having several AVs somehow ending up on a machine, and they'll usually fight each other to the death. In this instance, if you're using something, say for a certain task like encryption, perhaps, then it might be okay to work with Defender. If you guys have got a specific AV, do feel free to contact us afterwards, and I can have a word with Microsoft. We can talk about compatibility. But realistically speaking, ideally, you would want Defender for endpoint to function on its own within that environment. But as I said, if the other AV is performing, a smaller function, it might be just causing doing encryption or some other smaller tasks, and it's not doing threat detection. In that case, it might function fine. But what would be best is if you want to send over your specific information afterwards, we can have a look with Microsoft. We can talk about compatibility and see about functionality.
Brilliant. And then one final question: what are the licenses you need again for to access Defender for endpoint?
Yeah, good question. I think, Jose, I think you're an educational customer. Just to add some context, so Defender for endpoint P1 and P2 is not what we've just demonstrated today, but they are more enterprise subscriptions. And then we also have the Defender for Business. Now that is for the SMB commercial world. You'd be pleased to know that the Defender for Business is the equivalent to the Defender for Endpoint P2. They're pretty much virtually the same, EDR included, etc. So it is a substantial subscription, but geared up for more SMB. In answer to your question, to get Defender for Endpoint P2, you would need the A5, or you could potentially license a Microsoft 365 A5 security add-on if you had an A3. That's a bit of a cheaper way of doing it. But yeah, in terms of the SMB for today's audience, most of today's audience, Defender for Business is included in Business Premium, but you can buy it as a standalone if you have the eligible base license. Hopefully that answers your question.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. And thank you everyone for taking the time today to join us on our webinar. I'll send out the recording after the session is concluded. And to discuss any of the topics we've covered today, just please reach out to us directly. And you can also reach out to your account manager if you're an existing customer. Just one small favour before we do finish off. Asked during the break if we could scan the QR code, and if you haven't had a chance to do that, please could you do that before we finish off the webinar today. And thank you for everyone's time, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. We'll share details of that when we're ready to share them. And thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you, guys. See you in a bit.